one.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Reviews. Got another two games this week. First up, it's actually among our uh, most notable or biggest um, games we've reviewed all year. Actually, when I think about it,
Well, the
um,
year is only, 4 months old, barely.
right, right. I mean, there's still plenty of time,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm both of these games are pretty notable,
Mm-hmm.
because they're coming from notable developers. First up, we've got Ron Gilbert's latest, Thimbleweed Park, um, and after this, we've got Frozen Bytes Has Been Heroes. Now we're starting out with Thimbleweed Park, and let's see. Okay, first of all, we did an interview with Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick 2 or 3 years ago at this point. It was a while ago. I think the game was in early production. I don't think the development studio even had a name then. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good interview. He just tried to get them back on the show in the here and now, but apparently they were too busy to come back. Like they're doing a lot of promoting now, which is not a surprise because Thimbleweed Park released just a couple days ago, actually. It released last Thursday at the time of this recording, and uh, right. So, and as for what the game is, well, if you know who Ron Gilbert is, or Gary Winnick, or they were two of the more prominent members of LucasArts or Lucasfilm Games. If we're being accurate to their timeline, I mean, it's even in the game. Like they don't call the company um, an analog of LucasArts. It's Lucasfilm Games.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Although I think, actually, I forget, you could be right. I picked up an Atari cartridge and it sounded like a reference to that, but I don't remember what it was.
now the Atari cartridge is a reference to ET.
Okay, yeah, and the Pigeon brothers sisters talk about, if you ask them the first time you see them, they talk about how the game has certain quality of life improvements over traditional LucasArts style adventure games.
Hmm. Oh, I think that's where they start talking about death in adventure games. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. They go into the whole. Well, turns out we decided that it was discovered that that's not really that much fun.
Well, it's like there's a definite old school mentality going on here, which makes sense. You know, um, given that this game is one giant homage to specifically Maniac Mansion. Because Gary and Ron were the co-developers on Maniac Mansion. But I mean,
It shows in the art style here, or at least the style of the human figures.
it's not just the art style; it's the fact that you can use multiple protagonists. That's something that you saw in both Mansion and the much lesser known Zach McCracken. But once you get to Tales of Monkey, to the Monkey Island games and Day of the Tentacle, and so on and so forth, that that design goes away. Although it's interesting that they bring up death in LucasArts games because you could actually die in the earliest Lucas film games.
Yeah, well,
You
they specifically reference not since like Monkey Island has it been much of a thing.
Yeah, Monkey Island was really the game that changed that dynamic. Monkey Island was a real rebelling against the than current adventure game system. You know, because spoiler alert, they don't like Sierra Online or the Sierra Online style games.
Really? I
Like,
couldn't tell.
The ones where you die every 5 seconds because.
I mean, fuck, you didn't get to Charlotte's part yet, where she flat out mentions, you know, the Sierra Online games, and like if you would like, she has to grab a broken ketchup bottle, or I suppose she doesn't have to, but if you grab it, she mentioned if this were a Sierra game, you'd have died.
Yep.
You know, which is definitely
or the game would have become unwinnable.
Yeah, it's like either or.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah, I actually feel kind of bad. This is a long game, and I did not have much time to play it, and it seems really good. So,
well, here's the thing. I've put in about 18 hours, and I'm not through it yet. You know, I hope to return to it one day, but you know, here's how it works on the review assembly line. Like, I play the games that we're supposed to review for that week, and then they have to get tossed aside because guess what? Usually we have another 2 games to play next week.
yeah, sadly, most of us don't have the time. Well, first off, we don't have
Well,
the personnel to
yeah.
spread it out really thin.
It's like if we were doing this for you know, in a more monetary sense, like if people were getting paid for it, then you know we could allocate the, you know, the manpower to like full on, hey, you got to play this for 8 hours a day kind of deal, until it's done deal. But you know, it's like until that time, yeah, you know, it's like um you know, however much time we can spare towards game is kind of what you get. You know, this is just not a note for our audience, but you know, for our business partners. Like, you know, we do try to get through games, but you know, we never guarantee that we're going to beat the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this game and like the Planescape game that we're reviewing in whenever that is.
End of the month.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Planescape is another thing because I've actually played the original version. It's actually one of my favorite games of all time. So even if I don't get through it, it's like I know the game quite well.
Yeah, but it's a long game, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and it's like from what I've seen online, like a run through of the game is gonna be like 10 hours. There's a few caveats about that because okay, there are 2 play modes here. There's the casual mode and then there's the hard mode. I've been playing in hard mode, and
I was playing in casual, and I did notice there weren't. You get a tutorial in casual mode, but also there are fewer puzzles, and they're supposedly easier. I think some of them are.
yes, some of them are. There's an ink puzzle that is when you grab the ink bottle, the ink's there in casual mode. If you grab the ink bottle in hard mode, the ink is dried out and you have to solve another puzzle. I actually managed to solve that puzzle.
Okay, that's a good sample of the kind of thing.
Yes, I'm like, it's also solving puzzles at this particular moment in time is more difficult because the game came out, you know, like 3-4 days ago. There are no
there are no guides for this yet, or at least not much.
Yeah, it's like I've seen some preliminary guides, and I think that a walkthrough has been done in German, but I'm like, and you know, it's like there are forum postings about this and so on and so forth, but you know, right now this will obviously change as you know people complete the game, yada yada yada. But like right
and
now,
adventure games are one of the kind of games where unless you really enjoy puzzle solving and want to feel smart, which it's nice that this game has casual mode too, so that you can get through it without really needing to be really good at solving puzzles.
right?
But the way that games like this are structured, unless you're really in it for the puzzle solving, you can still get an interesting and experience playing through it, even if you have a guide.
Right, like there are those who deride the guides, but I'm like, here's the thing I never liked about adventure games. Getting stuck and trying to find that one thing you hadn't tried. And yes, this has happened to me on Thimbleweed Park. People have been getting stuck all over the place.
Yeah, and while this game does have the quality of life thing where it goes by the usual, I think it's the same as in like Maniac Mansion where you click on a verb and then click on a thing. It also has a thing where you can right click on a thing and it'll use like the default verb for that thing.
Yes,
but that's not always the one you want to use, and sometimes I don't think of using other verbs on things.
Yeah. Well, the truth of the matter is, okay, this is the scum system. Like the scum system operated on using. It was basically a parsing down of what came before. Historical context. Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, all of those. They were among the first mouse-driven adventure games. And there are some references to that as well. This game is very referential. Maybe
very referential. Fourth wall has some holes in it.
Yeah, I'm like it. Maybe a little too self-referential for my taste, but whatever. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So adventure games were kind of the early Sierra adventure games were kind of the next step from text-based adventure games. We go from Zork to King's Quest to Maniac Mansion, basically, and you see that in the interface. We go from parsers to verbs. The verbs were a simplification of typing out things in a text parser, what you did in like the early King's Quest and Space Quest and Leisure Suit Larry games. And if and it's one of those things, if you've ever come from before that, going back to that just feels incredibly archaic. It's one reason why I've never really I've played a lot of the early Sierra adventure games, but I've never really gotten into them like I did the likes of King's Quest V and Space Quest IV, where you had the much simplified interface.
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to my point, but here's the thing, you don't really see an interface this complex, I suppose, in today's day and age. Adventure games have really simplified the interface.
Yeah, in this game, because it is very, I would say, very successfully retro styled. To do a lot of stuff, you have to click 3 times. You have to click, give, then click the item in your inventory, and then click the thing you want to give it to. And there's no way to do that faster, really. Although sometimes there's a dialogue choice for it, I think.
Right. The point is that this is going back to an older sensibility that just might not click for people who played, say, Telltale games. Just to cite one example, a lot of the modern adventure games, are very, very simplistic in their interfaces. The game we played a couple months ago, the Book of Unwritten Tales 2, was pretty simple in terms of interface, and that interfaces for adventure games got really, really simplified. Right, this is it's the 90s where the point-and-click adventure game really was birthed in literal terms. Mm-hmm. Because it was more point at this, then click this, and then this and this. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think sort of the simplification you can see for this kind of thing is that instead of having to click on the verb in the thing, you click on the thing and then get a menu of options of what you can do with it.
Yeah, and
but the reason that it is the way it is very intentional.
Yes, and I'm noting this because I'm this is this is a game purely aimed at the old school. Like, it's kind of like if you grew up on the LucasArts games, you're probably going to want to play this. Like, if you're coming from newer digs, and I want to dispel something right now. The point and click adventure game genre isn't dead. It's not, and this isn't its savior. Like, God knows we've played enough adventure games over the past year to know that the genre is quite alive.
Mm-hmm.
And the genre is also moving in new directions. Like this game is not a representative of what's going on in the current scene, because if you've been if you've listened to our other adventure game reviews, and if you've listened to some of our other interviews out there, like our Oxenfree interview or our interview with Inkle, adventure games are moving much more towards narrative and less towards interface and puzzles. Like,
which doesn't mean that this doesn't have narrative. It does, but it has more puzzles than.
Yeah.
Well, for example, Oxenfree has very few puzzles, and almost all of them are just radio tuning, whereas this game has a lot of puzzles.
Right. I'm like, well, yeah, it's like another difference between like this game and its contemporary class is like this game is much more character driven than narrative driven. Like the story, like there's like, and that harkens back once again to LucasArts. Like, those were very character driven games. Day of the Tentacle and Sam and Max and Full Throttle and so on and so forth. Granted, I know the creators of this weren't there when those games were there, but still in the style. That's not to say that story isn't important, because it is, and it's very Twin Peaks. I'm like,
the signals are very strong tonight.
Right. And there's a lot going on under the surface, and everything is not what it seems. This is actually a lot more poignant than it should be in 2017, because Twin Peaks is coming back for its inexplicable final season this year.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I never actually watched Twin Peaks, but I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I tried to get into Twin Peaks. It just never clicked with me. Like I like when Twin Peaks was new and on the air, I was too young to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I'm one of the people who thought season 2 was fucking terrible. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's probably, the reason why it's coming back is because stuff that is evocative of or outright like homaging or ripping off Twin Peaks is pretty popular nowadays. I've heard like Gravity Falls is a lighter version of it.
I suppose, but people were ripping off Twin Peaks, back in the 90s. I mean, for fuck's sakes, the X-Files.
Oh, I know, but everything goes in phases, and it's popular now.
Well, it's also because they got the opportunity to actually finish the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually makes sense in context, but that's another discussion for another day.
Yep.
Anyway, so everything looks very retro, and that's actually taken into account because instead of decomposing, the body is pixelating.
Yeah. I saw a video. Yeah, that was one of the first bits of, okay, there's some holes in the fourth wall. That's okay. I saw a video on YouTube about one of the guys working on this game, I forget who, talking about 8-bit-ish art, and that this game has that, where it's not literally limited bit art with all of the color limitations and stuff, but they're definitely attempting to really make it almost look like it could have been. Like, basically, Shovel Knight is a comparison of really trying to nail the aesthetic of the classic games.
Yeah. And I'll say it. I think they really nailed what they were going for. Like it looks like it is a HD version of early Lucasfilm Games products. You know, it looks like what if they were doing Maniac Mansion these days would look like, or Zach McCracken. They even have, they even have some Zach McCracken references in there, which is always amusing, because I think I might be one of the few people in the universe who's actually played that game.
Mm.
I'm like
on the slightly more blatant and probably difficult to miss thing. I saw the tentacle in the crowd at the purple tentacle in the crowd of the circus.
like you know, this game actually takes place in the Maniac Mansion universe somehow, like because Leonard, the Quick Stop employee,
Mm-hmm.
he's actually the cousin to Bernard Bernoulli, who's the who's one of the characters in Maniac Mansion, and also one of the protagonists in Day of the Tentacle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, I guess it's distant enough where if you understand the reference, you get it, but
if you don't, it won't. You're not missing out on too much,
and you won't get sued.
Yeah. One of the quality of life things I did like in this is that every character you can play as more or less has a to-do list. So that if you put the game down and come back to it, you can remember some of the things you needed to do to progress just by looking at the list in your inventory.
Yeah. And as far as the characters themselves, they're uneven. It's like, and some of that is because you don't get like the federal agents, you don't get their actual backstory until much later in the game.
Yeah, right in the beginning, you get some in their notebooks. You get some information about they're probably not what they say they are, and they're not. They both have separate ulterior motives from each other, and they're both lying to each other about who they are. But they just kind of agree to work together because it's more convenient that way, and that's what's supposed to happen.
Like also, there's no other way to say it, but Reyes's voice actor is really really bad.
I noticed that several of the voice actors are at the very least a little weird.
Like, I'm not sure if that was going for like the Twin Peaks X-Files thing, or if that was just like they could only get because he's supposed to be Latino, but he sounds like he's from Eastern Europe. And I'm still trying to figure out if that was an intentional thing or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I know what the actual backstory is now, but it's still like, okay. I'm like seriously, was this the only guy they could get, or is this, part of the aesthetic here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what that says towards the game, but other than budgetary issues.
Well, considering that the first character you play as, who I believe is the murder victim, although I haven't gotten to the point where they outright say that or not. Although I think he gets killed at the end of is awkward German accent guy. So
that one's at least intentional because he's actually German.
Oh no, I got that, but the accent is a little bit awkwardly done.
Like, but compare this to like Ransom the Clown or even Charlotte, who they actually get playable backstory segments.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yes. So you get to know who those people are before you take control of them. There's a fifth character, but I can't talk about them because that would be
their existence is too much of a spoiler.
Oh yeah, a total fucking spoiler. That's all I can say at this point, without kind of ruining things.
So yeah, the setup is you're playing mostly as the two federal agents who are investigating the murder in this busted ass abandoned town, and also they're probably not actually really federal agents. And the whole town is based on this pillow/vacuum tube technology deal, and it's a really comfortably weird setting.
Well, it's also worth noting that the town is pretty much a shithole now because the pillow factory burned down and like the town magnate died. Like a lot of bad shit went down, and it's actually kind of a pretty apt what's actually going on in the actual Midwest like right now.
Although this game does very specifically take place mostly, at least initially, in the year 1987.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to tell a former cake shop that now sells vacuum tubes that YouTube is a good name for their shop.
Yes. And it's an alternate 1980s localized where vacuum tubes somehow stayed relevant in the face of transistor.
I think it's the real 1980s, but this is just like a town where everything is just fuck backwards.
Well, it gets more ridiculous the deeper you go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not fully there yet, but I know some things about what's going on here. And another thing to note about this game is there are multiple endings. Like,
of course there are. It's not a proper adventure game if there aren't multiple endings.
Right, and the endings are based on what you do and what you don't do in the game. That's another reason why I haven't completed this. I'm actually like midway through chapter 4, and this is like about the time when you start getting the puzzles that if you don't do in the here and now, you're gonna miss them. Yeah, there are missable puzzles in this. They're the optional towards true completion puzzles, but if you're not careful, you're gonna miss them.
There are probably a lot less of those in classic mode, or in casual mode rather.
I couldn't say to that. No. I really couldn't say if those are there or not, but you don't have to complete them for the game, for the sake of the game. But I'm like to do certain things, you do have to do them. I know that. It's like, in keeping with the the LucasArts aesthetic, you will not die. Although I can't remember the last time you could actually die in an adventure game. Like I think you'd have to go legitimately have to go back to say the 90s to find one of those. Like every adventure game done these days, death isn't even a consideration. Like
the game itself assures you that you don't have to worry about dying or getting into an unwinnable state.
Right. But yeah, unfortunately, that kind of shows you that this game is a bit out of step with the current world, because having to reassure a player that you're not going to die.
Well, I suspect that might be because the first thing the game hits you with is that its aesthetic is so retro. You might be concerned about in a retro style game about that they're going to be retro style kill you everywhere.
I guess, but once again, if you even like passingly know LucasArts games, there was no death in those.
Fair enough.
It's like I don't know. I don't know. It's I guess it's nice that it's there.
Yeah, the actual dialogue tree is like, this is really weird. Maybe I should save my game. And then the person you're talking to says, don't worry about it. This game is not, you might need to explore everywhere, but you're not going to get randomly killed or.
Yeah. From what I understand, and there is like one instance of death. It's a joke death, like in Monkey Island. Mm-hmm. Like Monkey Island. It was death-free except for one exception where if you actually stayed underwater for 10 minutes, you would die.
Right, because he tells you can hold your breath for 10 minutes.
And
yeah.
But it's so out there and unique that it's really a non-standard game over, as they call
Right.
it, instead of an actual death. Uh, but anyway, getting back to the actual graphics, I mean, they look really good. You know, um,
Yeah,
you know,
this is a game that has retro style art by some of the people who got really good at making retro style art.
yeah, it's like it's probably among the best looking retro style games I've ever seen. Like, it's one of those. It's the difference between somebody who gets the style and somebody who's just using the style. You know, somebody who's using the 8-bit retro style or low resolution pixel art because it's, I don't know, cheaper or whatever, versus somebody who's invoking a particular aesthetic. That really is the fucking difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And this is like I would sort of compare it a little bit to Shardlight.
Yeah.
Although not entirely. Well, Shardlight has a very different style. This one is
Shardlight.
formed, but
Shardlight had a few different things going. Like, first of all, it looked like that because of the actual engine. Like, using the adventure game engine. Well, you're gonna get games that look like that. So
true.
That this is a custom job. This is a custom engine as far as so they had to work from scratch to make this game look like this, which is all the more impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a game that's yearning to invoke the late '80s adventure game aesthetic, versus a game that's looking like this just because. You know, or it's trying to invoke that particular time frame and gets the details wrong.
Right.
Like Shovel Knight and V6 are good examples of the devil in the details.
Yeah, it's games that look the way they do, which is not the way that most games try to look, but they look that way because they're definitely trying to look exactly that way.
Well, it pulls off an even harder feat by not only invoking the retro but looking modern and current.
Mm-hmm.
Like this game, even though it's using the old art style, its resolutions are not old school. Like
you get the full range of resolution options.
Yeah, no,
and
you can
it defaults to full screen, but you can put it in windowed mode without any problems.
Yeah, you can pump this game up to like 1080p. Trying to remember if there are 4K options. But yeah, it's a game that'll actually that'll look good on your modern computer system. Like, also worth noting, this game is currently available for the PC platforms and the Xbox One. In that regard, it's an Xbox One exclusive for 3 months. So this game is coming to the PlayStation 4 after that exclusivity window's up. Don't know exactly when the PlayStation 4 version is happening, but there is a PlayStation 4 version happening. So,
also to note regarding the console ports, this is a game that you can play. You can play with a controller.
Yes.
I don't think I recommend it, but you can.
In terms of controller, the PlayStation 4 controller is going to be better because it's got that pad in the middle.
Yeah, the touchpad.
Yeah.
Assuming they key that to the mouse.
Yeah, it's like you'll be able to play this game with an Xbox controller, well enough, but I don't know. It's like trying to play. It's one of those. I could do that, but I'm on a PC, so I'm going to just stick with the point and click. So I don't know how well it plays with an Xbox controller, because not for nothing, because why would you play with a controller in a point and click adventure game?
Yeah.
It's
not designed for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, it's so much easier to navigate a 2D point and click adventure game using the old style. Now, if it's a 3D game, if it's a 3D adventure game, then the controller makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something like if you have full range of motion around your characters and they can look at things like Sam and Max: The Devil's Playhouse comes to mind. Like I tried playing that game with a you know, the traditional style, and it was just better to use a controller. Now, anyway, the point is, yeah, yeah, you can play with a controller, but why would you want to if you have the option to use a mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The music is pretty varied. Like, and there's some notable tracks like the new wave synth track, which is actually a lot more modern than I think it was expecting. That's more because new wave synth is all over games these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know how they work about like 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, and the menu theme was pretty memorable as well.
Mm-hmm. I was playing mostly with the music kind of quiet, but what I did hear I liked.
Yeah. Trying to think it. One moment while I check it on the soundtrack. See it like
I don't see it.
it's like I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look like you could buy it off of Steam, but let me check other options, like if it's iTunes or if it's getting like a vinyl pressing. Yeah, vinyl pressings for game soundtracks are becoming a popular thing.
Well, for a lot of retro games, yeah.
There's
Yeah,
that, and then there's the new thing they're doing with CDs, where they release like a CD pack in a vinyl-sized sleeve.
yeah, I'm not really seeing like a proper like. There's a listing here on Game OST, but I don't know how legit this is.
Hmm.
Like,
Well, if you
anyway,
have it on Steam, you can probably pull most of the files out. If you
Depends on the
use,
game, but maybe.
yeah.
yeah, let's see. Also, this game was the subject of a Kickstarter campaign, like 2014, I believe.
Hmm.
It's worth noting because there's quite a lot of Kickstarter material here. Backer rewards.
Yeah,
Um,
there's people in the phone book. There's people in the answering machine.
yeah, it's like, yeah, there's a phone book, and if you call the numbers, like most of the numbers are Kickstarter rewards things.
Yeah, there
There's
are a few that are relevant.
yeah, there's a few puzzle relevant. In fact, Alex, I think you're about to hit one of the big phone puzzle relevant puzzles.
Yep.
Like, and but you like they actually delineate what like the red numbers are for the puzzles, the black numbers are the Kickstarter things.
Hmm.
You know, and then
Because user friendliness is something that they can do in games now.
yeah, and then there's the library where there's a whole bunch of books that had Kickstarter backer materials in it. Like,
Yeah,
there's
and
even
there are
like
actually achievements in the game for reading a lot of books in the library or checking a lot of answering machine messages or whatever.
yeah, I'll be honest, I did not engage in that because
Well, yeah, we're on a limited time span.
yeah, it's like they're neat things, but I'm like didn't back this, and also it's at the end of the day it's fluff. Like
Yeah, I
it,
think it's a good way of integrating it into the game, though.
yes, you know, and yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think my biggest problem with the game was the integration of characters. That is to say, like once you get control of characters, they just kind of show up everywhere. It's like the agents and Ransom the Clown and Charlotte. They'll they'll all have to get together to like solve puzzles. Yeah, switching characters is a big part of solving puzzles here.
You can do it at almost any time. There's a little drop down in the upper right corner of the screen. I kept forgetting I could do it sometimes, though.
Right, but like in regards to like Ransom and Charlotte, they just kind of join the agents, and there's no real reason why that happens. It was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, but yeah. Let's see. So, pricing. The game clocks in at $20. Okay, first of all, this is another reference. I'm like, it's actually a reference to Monkey Island.
Oh, was that $20 initially?
There's a there's a there there's a line of dialogue in Monkey Island that says never pay more than $20 for a game. Yeah, I'm like, so that's part of why it's $20, just to let you know.
I would say it's worth $20.
Yeah, it's totally worth $20. With a bit of a caveat, like if you're like I said, if you're used to modern adventure games or walking simulators or what have you, this may be a little too clunky for your tastes. Like,
yeah, it's a good game, but you got to know what you're getting into to appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's among the best games I've played all year. Like, and if I actually get some time to independently play games, I would actually like to come back to this. But in terms of accessibility, I'm like, it's not looking to be, it's definitely more like it's not completely closed off. Like things like casual mode and the tutorials, them explaining what everything does shows that they don't mind if a new audience shows up. But this is definitely an old school game made for the people who played this shit growing up.
Yeah, and the tutorials are pretty quick and painless. They're mostly just for people who aren't familiar with this subgenre.
Right. So it is worth noting on that field.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, is there anything left to cover in terms of this game here?
The voice acting was, I mean, some parts of it are a little bit awkward, but I think overall it's pretty good.
Like I said,
and it's pretty complete too.
Yeah, it's definitely a complete game.
No, I mean the voice acting. Like you can turn on the voices or turn on text, but you rarely need to.
Yeah, that was another feature of LucasArts games around the early '90s. Once they were starting to move off of discs and going on to CDs, you had the option of text, voice, or both. Like you can actually play this with the voices off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or you can you can have both on. If you want.
I did that when you started the call. I put the thing on so I could keep listening. But yeah.
Right. So, comments from the other people who haven't really spoken yet.
Personally, I'm not really big into this just because I've never really played adventure games from the era this is harkening back to, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh. And as we've duly noted.
Yeah. But, like, I could see if you were, like, somebody who, misses games from that era, this would be right up your alley.
Twilight? Right. You didn't actually play the game.
No, I haven't. I have played Maniac Mansion a while back, but I haven't played this, but I wasn't fine with it myself. Really enjoyed it. I'll probably get it later on. But from what I've seen and heard, it sounds really fun.
Yeah. Right, so, like I said, it's a damn fun adventure game. How well it's going to rate on like your Game of the Year scale is probably going to depend on how old school you are in this genre. So, but it's not complete. It's not completely alienating, at least not in terms of interface. It'll take a bit. Like I honestly think that the some of the self-referential humor is more alienating than the controls, uh, because it is referencing a lot of stuff that people who say grew up with Myst may not have ever played, or even King's Quest, or what have you.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind if you do buy the game. So with that in mind, I think that completes this review. Unless there's anything else you wish to mention at this point in time.
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good.
All right. So that'll do it for Thimbleweed Park. Stay tuned in a little bit where we review Has Been Heroes and yada yada good gaming.